microphone here, and it catches everything. Very cool. So today we're just going to do an introductory training to negotiations, just to kind of get everybody jazzed about the concept of being in more and more negotiations, something we're going to find ourselves in a lot, and actually something that Susie and I were working on for one of her transactions last weekend. And we had discussed that this would have been a really great training to do for a lot of the newer brokers who haven't experienced real estate negotiations, or maybe we've been outside of negotiations for a little while and we've kind of gotten a little bit rusty. Maybe we need something that kind of invigorates us and gets us excited about learning a little bit more about negotiations. This is one of those tools that you can sharpen over time and kind of just get yourself excited about using different techniques and strategies to help yourself inside of your transactions and get your clients a little bit more. So yeah, we wanted to go through that with you guys. So I guess to start, why don't we just talk a little bit about what you guys think of the word negotiation? When you hear negotiation, what is the first thing that you think of?
Winning.
Winning. Okay. So there's a competitive aspect to that. Cool. What else do you guys think of when you're you're thinking about negotiations? Communication. Okay, great.
Ping pong.
Ping pong. Okay. Good.
Back and forth of things.
Excellent. Anybody else have any other adjectives or words that they think of when they think of negotiations?
Discovery.
Discovery.
Closing.
Closing. Good. Excellent. Everybody's giving such wonderful words and adjectives right now to describe negotiations. In a lot of circles, people would think of negotiation as some sort of a fight, like they're combating another person. If you think of it in a competitive atmosphere, you're now fighting the other person and you have to win against them. But if we're actually looking at it like we should be, it's a collaboration between two people. It's an invitation to collaborate with one another. That's the negotiation. And we do want to find out how we can win, but we want to do that inside of the frame that we build for ourselves in this negotiation, right? And there are different strategies and techniques that we'll do to give ourselves the best possible chance of winning. So the next step in collaborating with somebody else and starting a negotiation, what do you think that is? What do you think the most important thing that we can do while collaborating with somebody else could be?
Now I know how John feels. I'm like, I think I know this.
Yeah, exactly. Don't answer.
See it from their point of view.
Okay. How would you do that?
Put yourself in their shoes.
Okay. How?
Asking questions of what would be fair to them in the negotiation process.
Questions are good. What happens when you ask a question and somebody gives you a response? What do you do?
Ask another question. Smack them. Open-ended question.
No.
You repeat their no?
Why would you repeat their question?
You can use it later.
So what you do
Find
is
out what they want
How do we find out what they want?
by asking questions.
discover,
Okay, but as we're asking questions, we're doing what?
taking notes.
Probing. Like, what's the word you're looking for?
We're listening, guys.
Okay.
So when I was in theater, they used to say acting. When we would talk about acting, we would talk about putting the heat on the other guy, right? Acting wasn't you saying your lines. Acting was you actively listening to the other person, right? And listening to the words that they're saying back to you, and then having that emotional response to be able to say the words back. So in a negotiation, we're actively listening to the other side. We need to find out what's important to them, right? Why is it important for us to find out what's important to them? Because it might be different than what we think is important to them, right?
Right.
So I'll give you an example. I had a house for sale. It was a condo that was for sale, and a broker came in and brought us an offer. This was in a market where houses didn't sell as easily as they do now. A broker came in and he brought us an offer that was slightly under the asking price, but he came in to present his offer. And I was a young broker at this time, and I thought to myself, I've got to protect my client. I've got to be the hero here. So I did all my research. I had comparables. I had spreadsheets, everything ready to go. I knew exactly what I was going to do to protect my client's best interests, right? Having not spoken with her at all, not knowing what's important to her, I know what's important. So then the broker comes in and he shows one comparable. And he says, hey, you know, because of this comparable, it's probably worth this much, so we're giving you this much, right? And it was significantly lower than we were expecting. So rather than listening to this broker and trying to come to an understanding, I tore him to pieces. I just ripped him apart in front of my client. And my client was sitting there watching me. She was fucking so happy that I was her broker. She was, and then the guy left, and he was like, did not want to ever have to talk to me again, right? Left. And then obviously that offer didn't work out, but my client was happy that she was working with me. The guy who didn't get the job done. The guy who just didn't sell the house. And then full on never sold the house. She ended up canceling the contract with me, and as amazing as I was in that moment, I wasn't actually that amazing because what she wanted was actually less than what that offer was. Later on, she ended up selling that house by herself for less than what that offer would have been.
Oof.
Had I listened to her, had I talked with her, had I found out what was important to her, I could have found a way to make that deal work. That was a big lesson for me, and that could be a big lesson for some of the newer people, and it could be a lesson for all of us as we're moving forward to remember to always check in with our clients and figure out what's important to them. That's going to be crucial to the negotiation process. So, in order for us to listen, we need to be able to get them to tell us stuff, so we obviously ask them questions. So, what kinds of questions do you think it would be important to ask in a negotiation?
Open-ended.
Why?
Because you don't want to shut down the conversation too early.
Exactly. That's very good.
Yeah.
Could there be another reason why we would ask open-ended questions?
You find out more.
Very true. If you ask a very direct question that only has one answer to it, you're just getting the answer that you want. If you ask them a very open question, you find out a lot more about what it is that they're looking for. Can you give me an example of an open-ended question?
What's the plan B if you don't sell this property?
That's awesome. That's really cool. Can you tell me why it would be important to know what the plan B is if they don't sell their home?
I guess, well, I mean, there shouldn't be a plan because they want their home to be sold. So, I mean, I guess plan B would be realistic.
That's a fine answer, by the way. Like, there is no plan B as a fine answer.
Yeah.
Because that means you got a motivated person on your hands.
Boom. It's motivation. It's huge. What's motivating this person to move forward, right? We're now figuring out what their plan is and what's important to them. That motivation. If they don't have a fucking plan B, they need to sell this place. Maybe it's a divorce. Maybe it's so many other situations that it could be. No plan B. Yeah, you've got yourself. That's a fiery hot lead that needs to sell their own. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But it ended up working out very well for them. Cool. So we've got open-ended questions as a way to be able to get a little bit more information about what's important to the person. Are there any other types of questions?
Theoretical.
Damn it, Logan.
Sorry.
Theoretical questions. Can we think of why asking theoretical questions would be important?
I think a lot of things come back to motivation. I'm sure it's more than that as well, but also, theoretical places them in a place where you can get to understand what their urgency is, what happens if we don't achieve this. So how important is it for you to get this done, type of thing. That's why I asked my theoretical question.
Yeah. It's not a bad reason to ask that question. Could there be another reason why we would ask theoretical questions?
Give an example of a theoretical question.
Well, hypothetically, let's say we have your house listed at $450,000 and somebody offers you $430,000. What would happen in that situation? I just gave you a theoretical situation.
Okay.
What happens now?
Okay. So now you're asking, why are we asking that question? To
What's
find
the
out
benefit? Yeah.
the benefit of asking, let's say, that specific question.
That
is
type of-
that type of question. Well, that specific question is you get to know like what's their bottom line price wise, you know, like
And it puts them emotionally into the situation, right?
yeah.
We need to understand what they're going to do in that specific situation. How many times have we heard a seller tell us, "I won't take a penny under $449." Right? What if somebody came in and gave you $445? You'd say no. $448?
Yeah.
You'd say no.
Yeah.
Right? Well, okay, you know, maybe I'd take $425. I don't know. I just want to play hardball with you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So we can open them up with theoretical questions. So questions are incredibly important. We've gone over 2 different types of questions that we can ask. They're kind of similar in the way that they work, but we can see how powerful these tools are. Delano?
I just got a question, because I know that Logan uses a lot. What would it mean to you if
Yeah.
you were to, is that a part of theoreticals as well?
It's kind of an open-ended question,
Yeah, okay.
but it's just emotional in nature. You know, like John says, put them in that emotional state and see what happens. You know, find out what's important to them. Like in the theoretical question too, you could say, let's say you said you won't take a penny under 450, but someone offered you 440, but with the exact dates you're looking for, would that be something you'd be open to? And then you start understanding which is most important to them.
Or with buyers more now, like I usually ask if we lose this over $1,000 because somebody else made an offer $1,000 more, are you going to be okay with that?
Yeah.
Because that's the price that we have to offer. That if somebody offers a penny more, you're going to be okay with it.
And that's an incredible point to make, is that oftentimes we do these things without even noticing that we're doing them. So that question is something that we've all been trained to just ask.
Yeah.
We know it, right? And there's something we're going to talk about. Actually, we can shift over to that now, but I'll talk about how a broker used this on me, and I didn't even realize until like the next day, and I was like, oh, she got me. Damn it.
Can't wait to hear that.
Cool. So we've talked about different types of questions, and you can see how powerful this can be in negotiations, right? We're often finding ourselves in negotiations. We talked about negotiating directly with another broker. We talked about negotiating with our sellers, negotiating with our buyers, to be able to figure out how to get ourselves into, the frame that we need to be in to get ourselves that win in this negotiation, right? We're trying to find a win that kind of fits inside of the reality of what we've set for ourselves. So, in order for us to get that win, does somebody else have to lose?
No, not necessarily.
No.
Is it easier to win if somebody else feels like they're the one winning?
Yes.
Could we frame things in a way that would make it feel like the other party has just won?
Oh yeah.
So it is incredibly, incredibly powerful to be able to reverse sell, right? To be able to make it, to empower the other side to give you what you want. So can somebody think of a way that they might be able to empower the other side of the negotiation to give them their win? How can you get someone to help you win?
Like Lana said, conditions and occupancy.
This
So
is
let me go back to my seller. I don't know. We'll check it out. And then you come back and like, okay, fine.
Yeah.
And then you think, oh my God, I won.
Yeah, I got that. I was able to get that for my client, right? A lot of this framing, when we set a frame to be able to negotiate inside of this little box that we've now built, we say, okay, well, this is the top, this is the bottom. We're doing what as we do that? We're anchoring our negotiation in this realm of reality. We can't sell somebody something that they don't want. So we need to figure out, okay, well, we're talking about this here. Are we both speaking about the same things here? Because if not, I need to get you ready to come up to where I'm talking about. So our anchor will set our negotiations where I want it to be. or where somebody else might not have thought where it should be. We can also find out where somebody else's frame may have been set by not giving them a number right out of the gate, right? So they often say that the first person to give the number that they're looking for loses, right?
Yeah.
So oftentimes we can set the frame by then figuring out what they're looking for without saying our numbers out loud. Say for a client, when we do an analysis on their home, and we take the listings, we give them all the listings, and we say, here's what the homes have sold for in your area. Do we then say, we think your house is worth 500,000?
No.
What do we say instead of saying, we think your house is worth 500,000?
Where do you think we should price your house?
Yeah.
Based on this information, where do you think we should price your house? And if you get a really skilled salesperson, what are they going to say?
What do you think?
You're the professional, you
Yeah.
tell me.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I've been in these situations before, and I'm sure you guys have too, where we go back and forth 8 times saying, well, just out of curiosity, what do you think? Well, I have no idea. I'm not the professional. You tell me. Well, you have the information here. Just give me your best guess. Well, I don't know, $1 million, right? So
It's tricky when you write say, I wrote it down. It's already written. That's
Oh
what it is.
yeah.
That's a cute one.
I see that somewhere.
actually, and that could be really fun too, to be able to say, why don't we do this? I'll write it down on a piece of paper, you write it down on a piece of paper, we'll flip at the same time.
That's so
Right.
dangerous.
Then you just
Imagine
draw
they
smiley
say
faces.
like
I was gonna say, just draw a house with a sold sign on it and be like, boom. Then they'd be like, really fast.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah, so then you would then be able to figure out where they're at, and you'd be able to pull them into your frame of negotiation, be able to anchor them into the section of negotiation that you need to be in. And then from there, you can start building out the strategy of how you're going to be able to conclude this negotiation together by asking some of those questions, by being able to work with one another and figure out what's important. So I'll give you an example of a line of questioning that might not be natural to use, but it can reverse sell something. So Susie, on a scale of 1 to 10, all right, I'm gonna ask you 2 questions. First question, on a scale of 1 to 10, how excited are you right now about making cold calls for your business?
Honest question, honest answer.
Honest answer, yeah. Scale of 1 to 10, 10 being
She
the
looks at
highest,
me
1 being
so
the lowest.
Honest answer, Josh.
We know real estate brokers are not excited about cold calls. So
11.
on a scale on a 4,
It's
okay.
actually not bad. It's better than I
A
thought.
4. So my second question is, why didn't you pick a lower number?
Because I got a lead this week, so.
You got a lead this week?
Great answer.
Good. Can you elaborate a little bit further?
I'm taking them to taking on visits on Sunday, on Sunday.
Yeah.
So,
So by cold calling, you were able to get a lead,
yes.
and that's got you excited up to a 4. Perfect. So a follow-up question to that would be, how can we get you up to a 6 or a 7
With a listing.
with a listing? So now, a couple of things just happened there in that discussion, right? Susie started selling me on cold calling and the benefits of cold calling. So we were in the discussion there. I asked her 2 questions, and now she's selling me on cold calling because it's beneficial for her business. She understands why that is. So you can do the same thing. I love the example of if you're looking for a pen, and I say, you're looking for a pen. What do you like about this pen?
Write stuff that I need to.
And you need to write, right? So you need a pen. I have this pen. Seems like you're in the market for one. Is there anything else about this pen that you're interested in?
Not in particular.
Is there anything special about this pen that other pens don't have?
Don't see anything. I mean, this is for a touch screen.
Yeah,
So
that's
not
pretty
most pens have that.
Oh my God, John.
I love this pen.
This is my favorite pen.
So yeah, by being able to get people to sell you whatever it is that you're selling. I'll give another example of this, and this is where I was saying the broker had actually gotten me. I was in discussion with the broker, and I was trying to say, trying to get information from her. So I was trying to do the mind ninjaing on her, and I don't even think she noticed that she did this. But in the discussions, I was trying to figure out where the other offers could be going and how high the price could go. Maybe find out what comparables did you use to be able to justify your price? What prices were you discussing with the seller? So on and so forth. And then she's saying, well, the house does need work. I said, yeah, but all the houses in the area need work, right? Yeah, but there's the oil tank in the basement. Yeah, but who cares about the oil tank? It's in Beaconsfield. It's a bungalow. That's me telling her why her listing should sell for more. It's like, well, yeah, but, there's this other problem. Yeah, but nobody cares about that problem. You have all of these things, and this comparable over here didn't sell for this price, so you guys should at least be at this price. Like, are you thinking more? And it was the next day that I woke up and I was like, oh my fuck, she got me. Like, she was not selling her house, forcing me to sell her house for her by just telling me all of the problems with the house so that I would encounter.
No way.
I don't think she did it on purpose. I don't think she noticed that she did it. I think that's a byproduct of the current real estate market. But it is something that we do have to pay attention to. It's the difference between listing the house at $575 and listing the house at $725, right? People see the house that's a higher price. Now you have to justify that price. People see the price at a lower price, and everyone has to justify why it's going to sell for the highest price. Now all of a sudden you're not selling the home; they're selling the home for you, right? So that's a huge difference in being able to negotiate. If it's the reverse, similar to the idea of being able to say yes and no, right? Getting a client to say yes a bunch of times can make them feel more comfortable about saying yes, but getting a client to say no can empower them. No has a lot of strength, and this is another strategy that we can implement by being able to say, you wouldn't want to lose money on the sale of your home. No. You wouldn't want to sell with conditions that are not favorable to you. You wouldn't let that happen, right? No. These are empowering no's that we can be using to our advantage in a negotiation setting. Now, a lot of this stuff is stuff that you have to work with and play with while you're in discussion with people. These are things that you can use to your advantage and have fun with. I think that's one of the biggest benefits that we have being actively inside of a sales environment as our job. We get to play with these kinds of things. But you don't only have to do it in real estate. You can do it in your personal life as well. We talk about this often. The fact that we're constantly in negotiations. We're constantly selling something, whether it's an idea, whether it's the new TV that we're trying to get for the living room, and our partner doesn't think we should be spending that much money on a TV, right?
I feel like this is all the men in this.
Yeah, exactly. Where we're gonna go on vacation, right? There's so many different negotiations that we have in our lives that some of these little techniques and strategies, maybe they're not gonna work to their fullest, but they're going to give us a clearer picture of where we need to go to be able to conclude that negotiation and find ourselves at a point where we've got what we're looking for.
Wait, you guys
Hey! What's that?
You guys can negotiate.
You just gotta try, man. Cool. So we've gone through the importance of negotiation and learning different strategies and techniques. We've gone through different questions that we can ask. Now, there's one really crucial, important thing that we do inside of a negotiation to conclude the negotiation, and that's close, right? But if we go to close the negotiation and go in for our ask without having earned it, what happens?
Get shut down.
Gets shut down, falls apart, right? So what do we have to do in order to be able to ask for that win, to be able to earn that?
Show value.
Just need 2 pieces of ID.
Actually, what Logan said there was great because it should be natural. If everything inside of your negotiation went incredibly smoothly, then the response at the end to be able to conclude the negotiation should be natural. Similar to a listing presentation, where at the end we just say, excellent, I just need 2 pieces of ID to get started. If we did everything right along the way, then it should be natural. We would just need to ask for it at that point. But that's because we've earned it. So being able to be comfortable closing and asking for that close after we've earned it. So if you do hit a snag along the way, you're gonna be met with an objection, right? So we'll be able to handle that objection and then close. So in a negotiation, actually just in life in general, we hit objections. Can somebody give me an example of an objection? We'll take real estate as a really good example for that. The commission objection, we get it all the time, right? So if somebody were to give you an objection about commission, what would you say? I don't want to pay 5%. Somebody else was saying they would do it for 4%.
Well, the most important thing is how much is going to be left in your pocket. And with the market that we have now, for sure, like if we're talking to a FISBO, for example, even if you sell by yourself with no commission, you're for sure going to be leaving money on the table. And I guarantee that we're going to sell for way more. I can show you comparables that sold with a competent agent and ones that sold with Proprio, and the difference is way, way more. So you're not even going to be thinking about the commission because you're going to make so much money at the end of the day.
Perfect.
Right.
And now if you've been in the discussion with the person for a long enough time, what's the next stage of the conversation after that point? How can you close somebody right after having said that?
On the commission?
Yeah, they just
So you
asked you
just
for
said
it.
exactly.
I just said
Yeah.
exactly that,
Now
right?
closing.
Okay,
If we're sitting down at a meeting together and I just talk to you about the commission and you
Yeah.
have the
and I
contract
just
for
said
goodwill.
that, okay, and I also say, after I say that, I usually say, and remember, you never have to accept any offer, even if it's above the asking price, if you're not 100% happy with all the conditions. So I'm just gonna be bringing you offers, and if you see one that's super amazing, then, you know, everybody wins. So are we good to go? Let's have your ID and let's get started.
Perfect. Yeah, just going in for the close. I think a lot of times we try to do something called buying it back after we've already concluded it, right? Have you guys heard the term buying it back?
Like the oversell?
Yeah.
Oversell.
Yeah.
Once you've already won the negotiation at that point, not just concluding,
Yeah,
continuing.
yeah.
So if you've actually closed the negotiation at that point and you're ready to close, we need to get comfortable with the idea of actually asking for that close. Once again, we need to earn it. So there is this level of comfort that we need to get, and we don't know where the boundaries are. That's where asking questions, that's where listening, that's where being a part of this collaboration together with the person that you're negotiating with all comes into play, and this is where we learn. So we use these different techniques and strategies to be able to learn as much information as we can inside of this negotiation to figure out how far we can push, and then when it's right to actually start pushing, right? And that's where we get to, okay, you know, I've now handled that last objection, now I can ask for the close. And at the beginning, once again, coming from a place of play, from learning, from figuring all of this out for yourself and how it's going to work for you, is by doing it. It's by getting yourself comfortable with the repetition of doing it. There was I forget the name of the salesperson, but he's a famous hairbrush salesperson. He'd go door to door selling brushes. And every single day he would have to wake up, go out and sell brushes. No one sold brushes for him. He got a couple of referrals from people, but it was belly to belly sales, knocking on doors every single day, going door to door. And he said, you have to be ready in a sales environment to face an ocean of objection, right? Of rejection, sorry. An ocean of rejection. So we're going to learn by falling on our faces, and we're going to learn by making mistakes. And even as time goes on, you're going to continue to learn how much more you need to learn and how much more you didn't know. Like I was saying, just a couple of days ago, a broker reverse sold me, and I didn't even realize it until a day later, right? But you'll reflect on a lot of those situations and you'll realize, oh shoot, These are the important skills that I still need to work on, that I still need to refine and sharpen. So I won't keep things going for too long. I know it's been pretty short and dense. We could talk more about body language and tonality, but I believe that would be a pretty big jump, and that's pretty much a whole other training. So was there anything inside of negotiations that people were curious about or wanted to interject and discuss that they've been
there's
looking
one
into?
more thing that I used to do all the time, and it's and then I heard somebody say, when you ask a closing question, you shut up. I don't know if you ever
100%.
seen that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Because there's usually a silence, like when you go for the close,
Oh, yeah.
there's a silence, and that silence can be so uncomfortable, and you're so anxious, and so much depends on it, and you're so excited about listing it. So then, no, it's so true. And then, you ask your closing question, and they're not, and then you're like, yes, and also remember that we're gonna make so much more money, and this and that. And they're like, oh, okay, we'll think about it. Right away, you kill yourselves. So now I learned that even if it's gonna take like a minute, and that's a long time of nobody speaking, it's like the first person that talks is gonna lose at that point. Like you're exactly. So you just
100%.
let that. You ask your closing question, and you just completely be quiet, and then the longer it takes, the more they're probably gonna say yes. Because if they're gonna say no, they're gonna say no right away. So the silence is actually
You have to
in their
just
favor.
let it,
You have
dude.
to let
It's felt like, for me, like 5 minutes have gone by with nobody saying
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
In reality, it's probably like what, 8 seconds, but
Yeah.
it feels like 5 minutes.
So you
You just look them right in the face. Eye contact for sure. Just like this.
So the normal reaction is just
You might
to
nod.
talk more, like.
No, I know, I'm so uncomfortable right now.
And it's a matter of who can last longer in that uncomfortable silence, for sure.
Mentally, they're like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
do you still use the pen technique yourself?
Give the pen. Usually now
It's
we're.
all electronic signatures.
Yeah, exactly. It's all electronic signatures now, so it's a lot of that,
But that's
unfortunately.
something you would still.
One of the ones I used to always love was just having everything physically there as a physical aid to be able to get the conclusion done is so much. It's so powerful. Our bodies, we say so much with our tone and our bodies that what we actually say is of minimal importance in comparison to how we say it and what we're doing as we say it. So by being able to just push things over and have it ready to go is incredibly strong.
Not the same as pushing over a laptop like here.
But by being able to have the laptop open and getting started with the things and asking them for their identification, and they have to pull it out, now all of a sudden you've got physicality inside of that negotiation for sure, and discussion. Yeah, and the silence thing too is interesting because usually what happens in that that uncomfortable area is what Logan likes to always talk about in these in a sales environment is you will succeed and do as well as the level of uncomfortable conversations you're willing to have, right? So in that situation, you're uncomfortable and everyone's uncomfortable. It's a tense situation. If you break your natural instinct, most people's natural instinct is to say, we can also
Exactly.
reduce the commission a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, we're not desperate or anything, but we'll reduce.
I don't need to have I don't need to have lunches every day. It's fine. We'll drop at a point. It's fine.
I'll pay for your notary and
Yeah, exactly. Craft dinner's a fine diet for my child.
So yeah, usually
Chip for.
in that silence is where those little doubts will set in, and then we'll sell ourselves short. When in reality, they might very well just be thinking it over and thinking, well, yeah, the last guy said this, but I like the cut of this guy's jib, and yeah, they look a lot more professional with everything that they're doing. So yeah, and then we're like, oh, and we'll do it for less. Like, oh, shit, okay, well, I just won. Didn't even know it. Marty?
I was just wondering how would you diffuse when you're going into negotiations, like a hostile negotiation? Like how would you diffuse him if he's like, listen, John, I told you this is the price, or like, you know what I mean?
So
How do you diffuse it? Because I know how I do, but how do you?
that's excellent. Thank you for bringing that up. So there's a couple of different books that I like to point to whenever I talk about negotiations. And the first one, the foundation of sales, is Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's literally the Bible of sales. It is the foundation, and if you try to build a house without a foundation, it's really difficult. So oftentimes falls apart. In How to Win Friends and Influence People, he talks about, killing the other side with kindness. Now, the problem with the situation that we just discussed is if things have turned hostile, it can seem patronizing to try to shift things to a more calm setting, right? You can't go from 100 to 0 when you're at 100. It's a crash. That's a car crash. You're asking for a giant explosion. So what I try to do is avoid allowing situations to get to that level. If they have gotten to that level, they are now at 100, and I've helped them get to 100, the chances of me actually being able to diffuse that are a lot slimmer than if I were to get somebody else to come in and help me diffuse that. So in those types of situations, I will actually look to try to get somebody else in to help me diffuse the situation if I can.
How do you judge?
So I just want to know from Marty's perspective, what is it that you would do in a situation like that to diffuse the situation?
Me, I always just like kind of do like a little timeout, then come back and be like, all right, things got a little bit heated between us, and I kind of acknowledge it that we got heated, and that if we can like move on, like a woosah, like
You can chime in if you want.
Actually, Logan can chime in.
Yeah, so I find when people get heated, they do so either behind their keyboards or through a phone. Back in the day, it was through the phone, and now it's behind their keyboards.
Yeah.
They talk a big game, and then when it's actually time to put the chips on the table, they're just not that tough. So I stole this idea from my dad a long time ago, and whenever he had a tough guy on his hands, he said, perfect, you know what? We're going to book a sit down with the other party. It's going to happen at 6 p.m. tomorrow. Come to my office. And then they come in, and they're like little bunny rabbits.
That's so
Get them face to face.
Get them face to face, and everything gets solved immediately. And the guy who's all boisterous and having a good time becomes a little baby.
That's such a good idea.
Yeah.
Another important thing to note too is when somebody explodes, when somebody gets really angry and they blow up at you, oftentimes there's going to be a lot of truth to what they're saying. When they're saying it, they'll say aggressive things and they'll say mean things, but inside of that, there's going to be truth to what they're saying. So usually I like to think of, in a negotiation setting, if somebody's really getting aggressive and angry with me, this is a perfect time to listen. Pay a lot of attention to what they're saying. They could be saying really mean things, and it could be, if you're not used to getting yelled at, it's hard to get yelled at the first couple of times, but you learn a lot. And that's a much more productive way to think about settings where you're going to get yelled at. In this industry, we get yelled at. It happens. In a sales environment, in life, you're going to get yelled at. But there's a lot of important things that you can learn from the other person as they're yelling at you, if you're paying attention and listening, which is extremely hard because it's very emotional. But if you can separate the emotion from that setting, you can learn a lot. Cool. Delana.
Oh, I was asking, we had an agent in our office once upon a time who was forceful, was there listening presentations or negotiations or whatever. I want to know, how do you know when you're pushing too far, and can we kind of address the difference between being male and female when pushing?
Yeah. So males and females have different advantages and disadvantages. Oftentimes, we want to talk with females a lot more than we want to talk with males. We see this a lot on the phone. The problem is people tend to trust the expertise of males more than they do females. That's the struggle that women will have. So we both have our benefits and our disadvantages inside of this industry. And that's just kind of what I've experienced, and I imagine you guys have experienced the same thing. Right? If a woman comes in and starts talking about stuff from the building inspection, it's not as impactful as a guy who looks like he might have actually done those.
100%.
Yeah, and that's just built into society, and we're working on changing it. But that's just the reality. And then on the phone, people are much more likely to tell a guy to go screw himself than a girl on the phone that they don't want to hurt their feelings. So that would be the difference in pushing. At a meeting, it can come off a lot more aggressive from a male. If they do use aggression to push, it is a lot more, like scary for them, and it's a lot more aggressive in that way. So I always like to take a softer approach. But it also does matter who you're discussing with, right?
Exactly.
Because if you're dealing with somebody who is more aggressive and they shut you down, right? Then all of a sudden you're not the person for them. They're not going to want to work with you because they're stronger than you are. So there is that.
What indicators are you basing this off? Like when
Pace.
when you talk to them, do you take triggers from what they're trying to get a little? Maybe I should.
Well, so there's different things that we'll use, like the disc, for instance. We'll be able to figure out, okay, what type of a person am I dealing with? Is this a dominant driver? Is this an interpersonal person? Are they statistical? Are they more structured stability?
What are you, John? Analytical, huh?
I'm an SI, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm structured, stable, and stability, and I'm also interpersonal. Yeah, excessive. Have you seen my computer screen? But a little bit. I would give myself more D than C.
Definitely.
Yeah.
D for sure.
Yeah.
You're also very organized, big word kind of guy.
That would be my S though.
That's the S.
Yeah, it's all because of the structures. It's
I have
because
no
I have.
S.
C is more like caution and
No S.
I have 0 S.
it's like reticence and caution and stuff like that is more C.
So
Yeah.
Wow.
so pitching a person who is a higher S, they'll want to know, okay, so on Monday we're going to do the photos at this time. We have a professional photographer who comes in and takes the photos. He's going to send us the photos. We're going to send them to a professional creative writing specialist. They're going to do the creative writing. Then we're going to send it to, like, those steps. That's comfort for me.
Yeah.
An S is going to be like, oh my God, you explain the whole process to me. I know exactly what you're doing. Then another guy's going to come in and be like, we're just going to sell your house. And it's going to be amazing. There's going to be drones in the air. Meanwhile, I'm like, where do I sign? Exactly. Don't even worry about it. It's sold already. Like, that, yeah.
This guy's my new best friend.
so that those differences in who's going to work. But now when it comes to being able to push, it's a matter of understanding the negotiation that you're inside of, and then having been in those situations before, having the cues. It's all experience. Knowing when it's okay to push, and then seeing where the boundary to push is. And if you're going to actually, if it's just going to take a couple of more asks to get what you're looking for, or if a couple of additional asks are going to push you out the door, right? And that all comes with experience, being able to read the other person and understand what you're seeing from them. But those are things that you learn over time. And like you could break your brain trying to study every single piece of literature and text that's out there to figure all of this stuff out, and find yourself in the setting for the first time and not use any of it.
Because it depends on the person. Like you have to adjust to the person. Like he was saying, you know, if somebody's super analytical, you do have to be like showing them all the comparables and step by step.
But
if somebody's not like that, you're gonna have to adjust a different way because you're gonna lose them.
But it's
they're not gonna listen.
it's the difference between knowledge is power and knowledge is potential power. The application of knowledge is power. So it's about us using these tools.
Yeah.
The more we just try these tools. One great exercise that I like to do with agents when we're working on the phone and we're getting comfortable with objection handling and closing is every single time you handle an objection, ask for the close. As ridiculous as that sounds. So like Marty, if I'm calling you and you're Duproprio, ring, ring, ring.
Yes, hello, who is this?
Yeah, hey, I'm calling about the place for sale on 123 Fake Street. Are you looking to work with a real estate broker?
No.
Oh, okay, why?
Because my family member, my cousin's a broker.
Oh, that's great. Your cousin's a broker. Well, you didn't choose to work with your cousin initially, so there's probably a reason you didn't want to do that. Well, why wouldn't you want to work with your cousin?
I don't know, I thought I'd do it on myself, but the market this hot, I don't need a broker.
Okay, so with the market being as hot as it is, you can imagine there's probably a million other buyers out there who aren't actually able to see your home because they're not searching on MLS because the market is so hot, they need brokers to work with them.
Yeah.
So that makes sense to you, right?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, so then listen, I'm going to be in your area next week, in the next 2 days on 6 to 7 tomorrow and 2 to 4 the day after. We would work better for you if I come over.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, but that's just like from one objection to handling it. Then you'd obviously say no, and then I would say the next one, and I would do right after handling the objection, I would go in for the close. And then you'd say no again, then I would handle another objection. and then going for the close, and just keep doing it until you realize, oh shit, this person's now getting pissed that I keep asking for the close, right? And then you're gonna say, okay, shit, yeah, I get it now. After like 4 closes, this is where, okay, and it's because I'm not actually talking to them. I'm just being a robot with them, handling their objections. And okay, so now I realize, okay, I've got to talk with them a little bit, kind of get a little bit of interpersonality in there, figure out what's important to them, and then ask for the close. And then you're probably gonna ask for the close multiple times.
I find that a good time to see what kind of person they are, or what type of person they are, is when you get there and they're giving you the tour of the home.
Yup.
Yep,
Oh no, what did you eat?
it's gone now. I'll find out what it was
Go
later.
back in time.
Yep. Yeah, no, honest, being able to go through the home and ask questions that are about what's important to them and learning more about who they are can be really important and beneficial in negotiation. People want to do business with people that they
No.
and
Trust.
Trust
And like.
and like, trust and
like.
like.
No.
So one additional strategy that they've done a lot of research on is the use of words. So when we're talking with somebody else, if we use the same words that they use, they're more likely to want to communicate with us because we are like them. They actually did this study with waitresses where they had them say the order back in the same way it was said to them versus saying it in a way that was slightly different. And they found that the waitresses that said the orders back exactly the same way that it was said to them received on average more tips. I don't remember the exact number, but it was more. So that'll lead me to the last little bit of this training in negotiations is this is science. This is all social science, and social science is such a broad field. There's so much to learn, there's so much to know, and there's so much to play inside of. I'll give you an example about body language. I was working with a client who I was, a Duproprio that I was going to be signing, and I was sitting down with her and I was watching her body language, figured out where her baseline setting was. In our discussion, she had moved her body forward, which tells me that she's engaged in the conversation, and during the discussions, there was something she didn't like, and she had actually moved her body away and pulled herself away from the conversation physically. And then I was able to figure out, oh shit, she didn't like that. Oh, okay, so hold on, let me get away from that and focus to this. And she pulled her body back forward. And that told me so much and helped me out so much that we were able to actually get the signature there, not have to worry about the discussions about remuneration as much, because I had figured out how to get her to like me, and she was so expressive with her body. So that's one area that you can go to, and one thing that you can focus on learning a little bit more about. So I think we're just at the end. Did anybody have any other questions or comments about negotiations they wanted to add in?
Pretty much explained it very well.
That reverse sell was such a freaking huge aha moment for me because I never had a term like what to call it.
Oh, nice.
So that was incredible.
Yeah, that's one that is so much fun, but you're always trying to figure out how can I use this?
Yeah.
You gotta figure out the way to use this. Yeah. And it's one of those things that if you can slip it in naturally, right? When you're showing a house to a buyer, for instance, being able to say like, oh, well, what is it about this kitchen that you actually like? You know, and then have them be able to sell the kitchen to you, right? It's your own client, so you're working with their best interest in heart. But in this market, we need to understand that the reality is oftentimes we're working with our clients trying to get them to understand why a house is going to sell for a higher price than what we can justify. So if they can actually get emotionally attached to the home, then we can help get them to a place where they can actually win the multiple offer situation. Coolio?
Yeah.
Awesome, guys. Thanks so much. Not for sale. You have to make me an offer right now.
Dude, that's like you see dude, I want to analyze these things. You know, in the office when he's like, watch, and Dwight goes, watch this, sell me this piece of paper. He's like, okay, you want this piece of paper? Yes, and I'll pay you whatever you want for it. And he goes, well, if you want it so much, maybe I shouldn't give it to you. He's like, no, it's fine. We have plenty of sheets of paper. He's like,
no, I'm gonna keep this now. I like this paper. And I was like, no, I'm gonna buy it. He's like, read my lips, buddy. It's over. It was so fucking funny.
There was the other one.